In this video, we're going to check out the routing section and also this split area here. Before we do that, I just want to show this offset control here. Now, if your DAW is having problems with latency from another plugin that it's using, you can actually offset the tempo of LFO tool against the host tempo, so you could bring it forward or push it back. And that will allow you to basically offset that latency. To reset it, we can command click again. I wouldn't worry about that too much, as most DAWs will not have a problem in that department. But if you do have it, then that's how you can remedy it. Okay, so let's have a look at the routing section. This allows us to route any of our 12 LFO shapes to any of these 5 parameters: cutoff, resonance, volume, pan, and a filter variable effect here. So as I mentioned before, this is how we choose which one of our shapes is going to affect a parameter. Let's bring up the cutoff and just switch that on so we can hear it. Now you may notice here a little dot moving. This is basically an amount control, so it tells us how much we're affecting the parameter. So cutoff is obviously the filter cutoff. Resonance will create a peak around the cutoff point. You can see that here. Volume is for kind of traditional sidechain effects and also gating effects. And pan will allow us to create kind of an auto pan. Now this parameter here, this filter variable parameter, is going to be determined by the filter type we have. At the moment, it's not doing anything. It's this one here. But a lot of time it will be fat, so it will make it a fatter kind of sound. Then other times it will be, say, morph. And sometimes it'll even be random French words. Bœuf meaning beef. So basically this will change dependent on what we have selected in the filter type. Okay, so we have an overall depth control for all of these as well. Now this is great if you want to basically automate something. So you might want to have it playing without. DAW, you could automate that to bring that effect in. Okay, let's just reinitialize this. So let's have a look at the split control, but let's do that on the bass line. So we're sidechaining the bass line to the kick drum. Well, we're sidechaining the bass line, it's not sidechained to the kick drum as you would do in a compressor in the DAW, but essentially that's what it's doing because we're doing it to the kick drum 4/4 pattern. So what we can do is bring in this split control, and whichever is illuminated here, so it could be low frequencies or high frequencies, we're only going to affect that portion of the frequency spectrum. So at the moment, we're only going to affect the low frequencies, and the high frequencies are going to pass through. The point at which they pass through is set by this frequency dial here. So everything above 720, or in this case actually everything below 720, is going to be affected by our routing section. So you can hear all those high frequencies coming through. If I switch it off, they're not coming through as much. So we could do the opposite. Now in both cases, I think it sounds better with it off. And often the simpler way of doing things is the better. But sometimes you may have a pad sound, for example, and you want to keep the low frequencies as they are, but you just want to sidechain the high frequencies, or the other way around. That's how you would do it. Okay, so that's the router and the split section. Next up, we're going to have a look at the filter section. Now we're going to have a look at the filter section over here. So we have a power button for that, enabling us to kind of switch it on and get it working. We have this button here that allows us to scroll through the different filter types. Now, the types we have come under the categories of normal, multi, flanges, and miscellaneous. So in normal, we have different flavors of low pass, high pass, and band pass filters, and also some notch filters and peak filters here. I'm just going to choose one at random. So for these filter types, we have the cutoff, which determines the point at which the filter is going to start working on the frequency spectrum. Resonance, which produces a peak around the cutoff point. See that here. A mix control, so we can decide to have either 100% of the sound filtered or a portion of the sound filtered. And this fat control, which basically fattens up the filter. It kind of sounds like a saturation kind of effect. Then we have a drive control. Which is going to distort the filter. Okay. Then under multi, we have filters that are made up of multiple filter types. For example, we could have a low and a high pass filter here. Now for the multi filters, the frequency dial sets the cutoff point for the second filter. So some of these are simple in this case, and then we have more complex ones. So we have a low pass, band pass, high pass, for example. Then we can morph between them using this morph control. So now we have a low pass, then a band pass, and then a high pass. So even just using LFO tool as a static filter is a really, really cool effect as well. But let's route our LFO to the filter variable parameter, in this case the morph. Really nice sounding. Okay, then we have flanges. Now these are different flavors of cone filters, flange filters, and phasers. Great for this kind of disco-y vibe as well. And then finally we have this miscellaneous section. So this contains a load of different kind of random filter types, cone filters, these kind of French and German settings, formant filters. So this will be a fun one to work on. So you can have a lot of fun with these kind of more random filter types and then using the LFO to modulate them. And don't forget, we can also use the mix control to bring that in and out. Very, very cool. Okay, so now we've looked at the filter section. Next up, we're going to have a look at some of the MIDI options with LFO tool.